Hello and welcome everyone. I've made this short video for all our valued customers who sometimes face problems during migration of Sophos Enterprise Console from one server to another. So the environment which we'll be playing with today would be this. We have a domain controller on which these domain accounts exist. This is the database user, we have a SUM user, and a domain administrator. The server on which we are currently logged in is sec-2012, which is our old sec server, and the version of Enterprise Console is 5.5.0. As you can see, I already have a couple of clients which are reporting to this Enterprise Console. The version we can quickly confirm, and we can confirm from programs and features the version of Sophos which is installed, Management Console, Database, Management Server, and Update Manager. It's a standalone installation of Sophos, wherein all the components reside on one domain member server. I have a test client, which is a Windows 7 machine. I have a test client 2, which is a Windows 10 machines. They are in their respective groups. And I have a server, which is the sec itself. They all have their respective policies, as you can see on the left-hand side. And one more thing, I knowingly selected Sophos Enterprise Console 5.5.0 to show you a little glimpse of our exploit prevention on premise. This is how a policy looks like. It's more or less similar to what we have on our Intercept X, which is central managed. If you have any applications which you want to exclude, they'll be detected over here and you can exclude them by selecting them. But I will always advise you to get in touch with Sophos support before excluding any legitimate applications, just to take a second opinion. And you can see the exploit prevention status to be active on two of my clients. And if I click on View Computer Details, you can see the exploit prevention status, which is active, and the agent version, which is 363583, which is the latest build of Hitman Pro component, which provides you protection against zero-day threats and unknown variants of ransomware. So the new server on which we will be migrating our Sophos Enterprise Console is a Windows Server 2016, and I'll be showing you that server in a little while. But this is the background I wanted to give you before we started the migration. The guide which we will be following on how to migrate your management server is given in this KBA 28276. So these instructions only apply to installations that use the default settings, it means C program files and likewise. And it does not apply to installations where the database or management service are located on different servers. Now, the target server should be in the same domain as the existing server. And this is the guide we will be following, 5.5.x, as our version of Enterprise Console is 5.5.0. I have opened up the guide here and jumping on to, I understand that every customer's environment should be different than the one demonstrated here. So I would really suggest them to go through each and every line in the assumptions. For example, neither the old server or the new server are a domain controller. And like collation settings of the SQL, and you have necessary administrator privileges on both the old server and the new server. And UAC should be disabled. And so the fifth step gives you what are the key steps in order to migrate the enterprise console to a new server. So let's begin by preparing the old server, which includes checking the update manager password and backing up our data. So preparing the old server for migration, the first sub-step is checking the update manager password. Now, as I already mentioned that I already have all the credentials that I need to migrate our enterprise console, and one of them was some user, which I have handy, and the password as well. So we can safely ignore this step. Let's stop the Sophos services in the defined order. Now we are going to back up the data, registry, and secure store. So in order to do that, we'll have to open a command window on this location because we are on a 64-bit OS. Shortly afterwards, you run the command, and if everything goes as per the plan and no errors are encountered, you'll get a build succeeded message, like in our case. And let's quickly confirm the location where the backup is stored. The database's physical files from the SQL instance have been backed up, and the registry keys, which is important for the endpoints to trust the new SEC server, and the secure store. So let's go back to the document and see what we have to do next. We have to copy to, we have to make two new folders in the backup folder. Please be very careful at each and every step because even if the slightest of mistakes is being done, it may be very difficult to backtrace and see what went wrong in the entire migration, and that might eat a lot of troubleshooting hours. So, just a word of caution. So, I believe we have successfully finished taking backup of the data, registry, and secure store. So, this is it. This is all the action that we needed to perform on the old server, and we just have to securely copy the backup folder to the new server. And we can safely shut this server down or just keep it on until and unless we have finished with the migration. So let's jump to the new server now. This is the brand new server 2016 on which we will be migrating our Sophos Enterprise console onto. And as you can see, there are no Sophos products installed on this server as of now. And as per the Excel sheet which I showed you earlier, this is also a part of sophos-test.net with a static IP address. Now going back on the guide, the seventh step is to install the Enterprise Console database component. So after you download the Enterprise Console 5.4.0, I think the newest migration guide needs to be made a small little changes here. It should be 5.5.0 as we are using the migration guide for 5.5.x. Let's confirm once again. So this is the guide which we are following and we are on the seventh step. So I have the installer ready here. So we are just going to accept, we're just going to select the database component so that it will install a fresh copy of Microsoft SQL Server 2012 and create the Sophos databases. This is the database user which we will be using. So the installation of the Sophos Enterprise Console databases is complete. And let's see what we have to do next. Now we have to create a new folder called Management Server in the following location. And we have to paste the backup folder to the management server, which I just did. Now we have to open a command prompt at the data backup restore folder location. Now I'm going to tell you a small trick which will save a lot of time. Hold down the Shift key on your keyboard and right click on the Data Backup Restore, and you'll get an additional option called Open Command Window here. And let's now fire this command which will only restore the database. The build seems to have succeeded. It means that we were successful in restoring just the databases in the new Sophos instance that we created. Now we have to merge certification manager.reg into the registry of the new server. We have finished restoring the database and certificate registry key, which brings us to the ninth step. The ninth step in the migration guide is to install the management server and management console. And we'll be using the same installer as we used for the database. As you can see that the installer automatically detected the presence of Sophos management database and hence the option is grayed out for us. So we'll select console and management server. Now it gives us a warning that the computer browser service is not running, so let's quickly start it. It's asking for the Sophos management, which is the database user. Now it's asking for the sum user, which is Sophos update mgr. So the installation of Enterprise Console, which means Management Server and Management Console, has been successful. Now, in the event that it does not, the best place you have to look is under Program Data, Sophos, Management Installer, and the logs here. Sort them by date modified. Check the Bootstrap log first of all, and in the Bootstrap log, you'll be able to see in the error whatever. For example, if the database management server installed to fail, or update manager, or the management console. So this is the first place you have to see. All right, so let's log off and log back in. As you can see on the migration guide that when you log back in for the first time, dismiss the warning, which says that the update manager is not configured, and close the Enterprise console. Now we have finished installing the Enterprise Console Management Server and Management Console components. And let's stop the Sophos services as mentioned in the ninth sub-step. We have finished stopping the Sophos services and we are safe to move on to the 10th step. Now let's proceed and back up the data on the new server. But before you do that, please make sure that you rename the existing backup folder to old server backup because if you miss this step, the old server backup will be overwritten with the new data. Remember the backup folder which we pasted over here? So let's rename it to old server backup. Now I'm sure you must remember how we took the backup the last time on our old server. We'll open a command prompt at this location and fire this command. Now, once again, this action has been successful. It means we were successful in taking the backup, but if in your scenario you're not able to or some kind of failed message is there, you'll have to go into the log folder and you'll have to see what went wrong. Now, moments after you fire the command, you'll get a build succeeded or a failed message. So if you get a failed message, you'll have to see in which step failed and accordingly do a quick Google search or in our community or open a case with us. So let's see what is next on the guide. So according to the guide, we have to rename the new backup folder that has been created to new server backup. And now we'll rename the old server backup to simply backup. Now the reason we are doing this is that the backup has to be used later for importing the registry values. Now let's stop the Sophos management service. Now we have finished taking backup of the data on the new server and we are safe to proceed on the 11th step, which is importing the registry and secure store. The 11th step in the migration guide says how to import registry and the secure store. Now, if you remember in the backup, we had a lot of registry keys and the secure store.back, which is a backup file. Now, open a command prompt at the Enterprise Console installation directory. Let's do that. And we are going to fire this command, which will restore the registry. Confirm to continue and acknowledge any messages about files being restored, which I just did. Now we are going to verify the management service database connection string value. in the registry. So let's open the registry editor and go to this key. The database connection MS, we have to make sure that the value, which is this, let's open it up in Notepad and see what it says. So it says the initial catalog, which is the database name, and the data source. It says local slash Sophos, which is the instance name of the SQL. Now, we don't have to change anything here because it looks quite correct. Now, we are going to check the server location. Now, in the value data, it's the old server host name. We have to replace it with the new server host name, which is SEC 2016. If you remember, we have a small Excel sheet in which you can see the environment with which we are playing. This is the new SEC server. And as per the 11th step in the migration guide, we changed the value of server location from the old data to new data. Now we have to go in the database, install a registry key. In the value data, it should read local backslash Sophos, so there's no problem here. It's the same. Now, our sum user or Sophos update manager user is not a workgroup or a local account, it's a domain account, so we can skip the sixth step. We can also skip the seventh step because the database user which we have is a domain account. Now, the eighth step is to modify the batch server URL. Let's go to this key. We have to change this to the new SEC server hostname. Now, we have to restore the table underscore router.txt which we backed up from the old server. Now, the last step would be to restore the secure store. Let's do that right now. And this marks the end of the 10th step, which was importing the registry and the secure store. So with save, we can move on to the 12th step now. But before we do that, we'll have to start all the Sophos services in the order mentioned below. Let's do that. So all the services have started successfully. Let's confirm this once from the GUI. And all the Sophos services seems to be happily running. This marks the end of the 11th step. The 12th step in the migration guide is to redirect the endpoints to the new update manager. Now let's see if the console opens up after we have finished with all the 10 steps above. So luckily the console does open up and it gives us a message that the update manager installed is not configured. So let's go to the update managers tab, and if you see duplicate entries, it's not a cause to worry at all. Now, I would strongly advise you not to delete the old entry, because if you try, you'll get a message which says Update Manager is in use. So do not delete this entry until and unless you follow the steps which I am going to show you now. Now we are going to double click the new sum and set up the sources, subscriptions, distribution, and other details. As per the fourth step, which says double click the new sum and set up the sources, I just added a source Sophos and entered my credentials. And we will add the only subscription which I have recommended. Distribution is by default set here when you install Sophos Update Manager. Schedule, logging, and everything else is set. So let's click OK and let's trigger an update. And let's wait until the last updated column changes from never to the current date time for the new sum. And many of you must be already aware of how to monitor the progress. So you have to go to C Program Files, Sophos, Update Manager, and Log Viewer. You can change the logging level to debug and see what's happening. Now, as conveyed earlier, we have to wait until the last updated is the same as the download status over here. The next step which we have to do is to configure updating policy. So let's go back to endpoints. We only have one updating policy which says the older server over here. So I'm just going to make a small change to the new server name and click OK. And this policy will be assigned to these three groups. Now in the primary server, I did change the address to the new server location. Let's confirm once again. And by the way, you can see that in the new server, all the policies have been successfully restored, and so have the groups and the computers. So let's take a look, and the new server name is here. And now we can go to Update Managers and click the old sum and delete. Let's do that. And it lets us delete the old sum successfully now. Now we can move on to step 14. Let's begin with the 14th step, which says redirecting endpoints to the new enterprise console. Now, the easiest way to redirect all the endpoints to the new SSE server would be to simply re-protect them by right-clicking them and protect computers. But that is not the advisable way if you have hundreds and thousands of computers. So the alternate way would be to using an endpoint migration utility, which you can go to that KBA by clicking here and read all the important notes. Now download the emu.zip from here, and I have already downloaded the utility, and let's fire it away. This option should always be checked in most of the scenarios because we are reinitializing the RMS to talk to the new SSE server now. We'll give the path to the new cac.pem, which is the public CA certificate of any SSE installation. Although I do not have the patch agent installed, but I will still give the new IP address 192.168.0. Let's confirm it once again. 152. So this is the endpoint migration utility script which needs to be run on all the computers. But please make sure that I have selected the SSE group path, so you'll have to create different scripts for different computers. Now, once again, I would like to take you back to the KBA, and I just want to let you know that this script must be run as an administrator user on all the endpoints. So let's go ahead and run the script on one of the test machines, which is test-client, a Windows 7 machine. Before I ran the script, I wanted to confirm that this is the computer on which we will be running the script as an administrator. So this is the script. And the current user is a domain administrator, and I'm going to run this now. Now, as you noticed that this script is not user intensive at all. So if you want to see if it failed for some reason or succeeded, you'll have to go to C Windows temp and check the client MR init, and you'll be able to see the log files, found three addresses, and you can see the new SEC server is now the parent for this computer. So I showed you how to use the endpoint migration utility to redirect endpoints to the new server. The other approach which you can take is to protect from the console, which I'm going to do to the other client now. This is the second client which I have, and even if this has successfully updated and taken in the new policy, as we will shortly confirm by opening the GUI. The new server name, the some username and password. The last updated matches the time over here. And let's go back to SIG and see what happens here. And everything is perfect. Let's see what the error we have. The warning says we may need to restart this PC for the updates to take effect, which I'll be doing it after some time. But thank you so much for watching, and this marks the end of this video. If you have any questions at all, please let me know in the comments. Thank you and have a wonderful day.